Yes. Now, this relief of a commanding officer by a subordinate? Yes. The unconceivable has happened. It is conceivable, but it wasn't conceivable that the most unusual and extraordinary circumstances may arise in which the relief from duty of a commanding officer by a subordinate becomes necessary, either by placing the commanding officer under arrest or on the sick list. Now, such action shall never be taken without the approval of the Commandant of the Marine Corps or the Chief of Naval Personnel. Pooh. Now, it is conceivable. It's possible to think of it, isn't it? That exception to every rule where the civil rights of American citizens are not being enforced. But there's some very specific conditions that must be in order for that a subordinate officer acting upon his or her own initiative may be vindicated for relieving a commanding officer from duty. The situation must be obvious and clear and must admit to the single conclusion that the retention of command by such commanding officer was seriously and irretrievably prejudiced the public interest. Those public interests that I told you about. Now, the subordinate officer, so that must be next in succession to command, must be unable to refer the. Now, I know the extraordinary circumstance of the public interest. Did you know that I'm a member of the public of the United States of America? And as a citizen, yes, I sent over 2 million emails about my rights being violated, and there wasn't a commanding officer in the United States Navy that decided that they had actual jurisdiction to enforce the Constitution. They didn't have to defend it. Now, let's say you look at your commanding officer and you're like, well, exactly what extraordinary circumstances has to exist for you to relieve your commanding officer of command? Now, if I was in the Navy, okay, I'd look at my command. Do you know of any fraud, any violence against the U.S. territory? It's in the public's interest to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, as one of those individuals that happens to be a citizen of the United States, there has been nothing that has. It's extraordinary, isn't it? The circumstances, the exception to every rule. They said they could use forgeries to issue court orders. I said, well, that's fraud. I said, oh, and they thought that it wasn't in the public interest.